Maya Chen wiped down the last table at Golden Dragon Restaurant, her tired feet aching from another 12-hour shift. The old Chinese restaurant in downtown Seattle had seen better days, with its faded red wallpaper and flickering neon sign that buzzed annoyingly throughout the night. She glanced at the clock on the wall, 11:47 p.m. Another day was finally over. The restaurant owner, Mr. Liu, emerged from his small office behind the kitchen, counting the day's earnings with a frown on his weathered face. Business had been slow, for months, and Maya could see the worry lines deepening around his eyes. The pandemic had hit small restaurants hard, and despite their best efforts to adapt with delivery services and takeout specials, customers were few and far between. "Maya, I'm sorry," Mr. Liu said quietly, avoiding her gaze. "I can only pay you half of what I owe this week. Maybe next week will be better." Maya's heart sank, but she managed a small smile. She had worked at Golden Dragon for 3 years, ever since she moved to Seattle from her small hometown in Oregon. Mr. Liu had given her a chance when no one else would, hiring her despite her limited experience and broken English at the time. She couldn't be angry with him, even though her own situation was becoming desperate. "It's okay, Mr. Liu," she replied, though her voice betrayed her concern. "I understand." He handed her a crumpled envelope containing $45 instead of her usual $90. Maya tucked it into her purse without counting, knowing every dollar by heart. She said goodnight and stepped out into the cool Seattle evening, pulling her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders. The walk to her tiny studio apartment took 20 minutes through quiet streets lined with closed shops and empty bus stops. Maya's mind raced as she calculated her remaining money. After paying rent last week, she had been surviving on the small tips from customers and whatever Mr. Liu could afford to pay her. The envelope in her purse, combined with the few crumpled bills in her apartment, would give her exactly $55 to last until her next paycheck. Her apartment building was old and run down, with peeling paint and a broken elevator that hadn't worked in months. Maya climbed 3 flights of stairs to her small unit, fumbling for her keys in the dim hallway light. The apartment was barely larger than a closet, with just enough space for a bed, a small table, and a kitchenette with a broken stove burner. She sat on her bed and emptied her purse onto the faded bedspread, counting her money carefully. $55. Her rent wasn't due for another 2 weeks, but she needed food, bus fare, and money for her phone bill. Maya opened her laptop, a 5-year-old model with a cracked screen she had bought secondhand, and checked her bank account. The number that stared back at her made her stomach clench. $847. Adding her cash to her bank balance gave her a total of $63.47. It wasn't enough for everything she needed, and she knew it. Maya had been in difficult situations before, but this felt different. She was completely alone in a big city, with no family nearby and only a few acquaintances from work who were struggling just as much as she was. She thought about calling her sister back home in Oregon, but pride held her back. When Maya had left for Seattle 3 years ago, she had promised everyone she would make it on her own. She had dreams of finishing her college degree, maybe starting her own business someday. Those dreams seemed impossibly far away now. The next morning, Maya woke up with a knot in her stomach. She had barely slept, worrying about money and wondering how she would make it through the next few weeks. She checked her phone and saw a text message from her landlord reminding all tenants that rent would increase by $50 starting next month. Maya stared at the message, feeling overwhelmed by the impossibility of her situation. She got dressed in her work uniform, black pants and a white shirt that had been washed so many times it was more gray than white. Before leaving for her shift, she counted her money again. Still $63.47. Maya decided she would buy groceries after work, stretching her budget to buy rice, some vegetables, and maybe some eggs to last the week. The day at Golden Dragon dragged by slowly. Only a handful of customers came in, mostly elderly regulars who ordered small portions and left modest tips. Maya tried to stay cheerful, but she could feel her energy draining as the hours passed. During her break, she researched other job opportunities on her phone, but most required experience or skills she didn't have. As evening approached, Maya realized she had earned only $12 in tips throughout the entire day. Combined with her existing money, she now had about $75 to her name. It still wasn't enough for everything she needed, but it would have to do. After her shift ended, Maya walked to the small grocery store near her apartment. She moved through the aisles carefully, picking up the cheapest items she could find. A bag of rice for $3, some onions and carrots for another $4, and a dozen eggs for $2 more. She stood in front of the meat section for a long time, wanting to buy something more substantial, but knowing she couldn't afford it. As she prepared to head to the checkout line, Maya noticed a small section near the back of the store she had never seen before. It was a tiny counter run by an elderly Chinese woman, selling fresh dumplings and noodles. The woman was packing up for the day, and Maya could see several containers of dumplings that hadn't been sold. "Excuse me," Maya said softly, approaching the counter. "How much for the dumplings?" The elderly woman looked up with kind eyes. $10 for big container, but is end of day. I give you for $8. Very good dumplings. I make myself." Maya looked at the container filled with plump, steaming dumplings. They looked incredible, and she realized she hadn't eaten anything substantial in 2 days. She calculated quickly in her head. If she bought the dumplings, she would have spent $17 on food, leaving her with about $58 for everything else. It was probably not the most practical choice, but Maya was exhausted, hungry, and desperately needed something that felt like a real meal. She handed over $8 to the woman, who smiled warmly and added an extra dumpling to the container. "You look hungry, dear," the woman said. "These will give you strength." Maya thanked her and walked home carrying her groceries and the warm container of dumplings. Back in her apartment, she sat at her small table and opened the container. The dumplings were perfect, soft dough wrapped around flavorful pork and vegetable filling. As she ate, Maya felt a small moment of comfort in her otherwise stressful situation. She counted her remaining money one more time before bed. After buying groceries and the dumplings, she had exactly $57 and some loose change. It would have to be enough somehow. Maya woke up the next morning to the sound of heavy rain against her small window. The gray Seattle sky matched her mood as she realized she had overslept by 30 minutes. She quickly got dressed and grabbed her umbrella, which had 3 broken spokes and barely kept her dry during the 10-minute walk to the bus stop. At the bus stop, Maya reached for her wallet to get her bus fare, but her heart stopped when she realized she had forgotten to save money for transportation. She checked her pockets frantically and found only loose change totaling 87 cents. The bus fare was $2.75, and she was short by almost $2. Maya watched 3 buses pass by as she stood in the rain, getting more soaked by the minute. She couldn't afford to miss work, especially after Mr. Liu had already reduced her hours last month. With no other choice, she began walking the 5 miles to Golden Dragon Restaurant, her shoes squelching with each step as water seeped through the worn soles. By the time Maya arrived at work, she was 45 minutes late and completely drenched. Her white shirt was nearly transparent and her hair was plastered to her head. Mr. Liu looked up from wiping down tables, his expression a mixture of concern and frustration. "Maya, you cannot be late like this," he said, though his tone was more worried than angry. "Mrs. Chang from the health department called. She's coming for inspection today. We need everything perfect." Maya apologized profusely and quickly changed into the spare uniform shirt she kept in her locker. She spent the next hour frantically cleaning and organizing, trying to make up for lost time. The restaurant had to pass this inspection, or Mr. Liu might lose his business license. Around noon, a stern-looking woman in a business suit entered the restaurant carrying a clipboard and official badge. Mrs. Chang began her inspection methodically, checking the kitchen, storage areas, and dining room. Maya watched nervously as the inspector examined everything with a critical eye. The inspection seemed to go well until Mrs. Chang discovered a small leak under the kitchen sink that had created a puddle of standing water. She frowned and made notes on her clipboard while Mr. Liu tried to explain that he had been waiting for a plumber he could afford. "This is a serious health code violation," Mrs. Chang said firmly. "You have 48 hours to fix this issue and schedule a re-inspection, or I'll have to suspend your operating license." After the inspector left, Mr. Liu sat down heavily at one of the tables, looking defeated. Maya could see the stress weighing on him as he calculated the cost of emergency plumbing repairs. She knew the restaurant was barely breaking even, and an unexpected expense like this could be devastating. "How much will it cost?" Maya asked quietly. "At least $300, maybe more," Mr. Liu replied. "And I don't have it. Business has been so slow and I already owe money to my suppliers." Maya felt terrible for her boss, but she also worried about her own situation. If Golden Dragon closed, she would lose her job and have no income at all. She spent the rest of her shift serving the few customers who came in, but her mind was distracted by financial worries. During her break, Maya called several plumbers to get quotes for the repair. The cheapest estimate she could find was $280, but they required payment up front. She also researched other restaurants in the area that might be hiring, but most wanted experienced servers or had already reduced their staff due to slow business. As the evening wore on, Maya noticed a well-dressed man sitting alone at table 12. He had been nursing a cup of tea for over an hour, occasionally making notes in a small leather notebook. She had served him earlier and he had been polite but quiet. Most customers ate quickly and left, but this man seemed to be in no hurry. When Maya brought him his check, the man looked up with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Excuse me," he said in a cultured voice. "I couldn't help but notice the inspection today. Is everything all right?" Maya hesitated, unsure whether she should discuss the restaurant's problems with a customer. But something about the man's sincere expression made her feel comfortable. "There's a small plumbing issue that needs to be fixed," she said, diplomatically. "Nothing serious?" The man nodded thoughtfully. "I've been coming here for several months and I've always been impressed by the service and food quality. It would be a shame if anything happened to this place." Maya smiled politely and left him to finish his tea. She noticed that he left a $20 tip on a $12 meal, which was unusually generous for their typical customers. After closing the restaurant, Maya helped Mr. Liu count the day's earnings. They had made $127 in total sales, barely enough to cover basic operating costs. Maya's share of tips for the day was only $8, bringing her total available money to about $55. As she prepared to leave, Maya realized she still didn't have bus fare for the next day. She would have to walk to work again, which meant waking up an hour earlier to arrive on time. The thought of another long walk in the rain made her feel exhausted before she even started. Outside the restaurant, Maya was surprised to see the well-dressed customer from table 12 standing near the entrance, checking his phone. He looked up when he saw her. "Miss Chen, isn't it?" he said. "I hope you don't mind, but I heard Mr. Liu mention your name during the inspection." Maya nodded, wondering why this stranger wanted to talk to her. "I know this might sound unusual, but I've been observing this restaurant for some time," the man continued. "I work in business development and I'm always looking for hardworking, dedicated employees. I've watched how you handle difficult situations with grace and professionalism." Maya was intrigued but cautious. She had learned to be wary of strangers making unexpected offers, especially when she was in a vulnerable situation. "I'm James Morrison," the man said, extending his hand. "I own several restaurants and hospitality businesses in the Seattle area. I'd like to discuss a potential opportunity with you if you're interested." Maya shook his hand, still unsure what to make of this unexpected encounter. "What kind of opportunity?" "Why don't we meet for coffee tomorrow morning?" James suggested. "I have a proposition that might benefit both of us. There's a small cafe called Emerald City Coffee on Pine Street. Would 10 a.m. work for you?" Maya quickly calculated in her head. She didn't work until 2 p.m. the next day, so she would have time for a meeting, but she also didn't have money for coffee or bus fare to get there. "I'm not sure I can make it," she said hesitantly. "I have some transportation issues right now." James seemed to understand immediately. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a $20 bill. "Please take this for cab fare and coffee. Consider it an advance investment in our potential business relationship." Maya stared at the money, torn between pride and necessity. She needed the transportation money, but accepting cash from a stranger felt uncomfortable. "I promise this is a legitimate business discussion," James said, sensing her hesitation. "I'll give you my business card and you can look up my company online. Morrison Hospitality Group. You can even bring a friend if that makes you feel more comfortable." Maya took his business card and, after a moment's hesitation, accepted the $20. She agreed to meet him at the cafe the next morning, though she still wasn't sure what to expect from this mysterious businessman who seemed to have taken a sudden interest in her future. Maya spent most of the night researching Morrison Hospitality Group on her laptop. The company website showed an impressive portfolio of successful restaurants, hotels, and catering businesses throughout the Pacific Northwest. James Morrison's biography described him as a self-made entrepreneur who had started with a single food truck and built his empire over 15 years. The more Maya read, the more legitimate the company appeared. There were news articles about Morrison's business expansions, charity work, and awards for excellence in hospitality management. Still, Maya couldn't shake her suspicion about why a successful businessman would suddenly take interest in a struggling server from a small Chinese restaurant. She arrived at Emerald City Coffee 15 minutes early, using part of James's $20 for bus fare. The cafe was warm and inviting, with exposed brick walls and the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans. Maya ordered a small coffee and found a table near the window, nervously checking the time every few minutes. James arrived precisely at 10 a.m., carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a well-tailored gray suit. He ordered a large coffee and a pastry before joining Maya at her table. Up close, she could see that he was probably in his early 40s, with kind eyes and an easy smile that made her feel slightly more comfortable. "Thank you for coming," James said, settling into his chair. "I know yesterday's invitation must have seemed strange, but I hope you'll hear me out." Maya nodded, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup for warmth and comfort. "I've been watching Golden Dragon for several months," James began. "Not in a creepy way," he added quickly, seeing Maya's expression. "It's part of my business research. I study small restaurants in different neighborhoods, looking for opportunities and identifying talented employees." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. "The hospitality industry is built on people, Maya. You can have the best location and the most expensive equipment, but without dedicated, hard-working staff, businesses fail. In all my observations at Golden Dragon, you've consistently impressed me." Maya listened carefully as James described specific instances he had witnessed. How she had handled a difficult customer who complained loudly about his meal, the way she helped an elderly woman who had trouble reading the menu, and her professionalism during busy lunch rushes when she was clearly overwhelmed. "I've built my business by identifying talent and providing opportunities," James continued. "Right now I'm opening a new upscale restaurant in the Belltown district. It's going to be called Pacific Harvest, focusing on fresh, locally sourced ingredients and exceptional service." Maya's heart began beating faster. She had never worked in fine dining, and the idea seemed both exciting and terrifying. "I need someone to manage the front-of-house operations," James explained. "Someone who understands customer service from the ground up, who can train and lead a team of servers, and who has the work ethic to help make this restaurant successful." Maya stared at him in disbelief. "You want me to be a manager? But I've only worked at Golden Dragon and I don't have any management experience." James smiled. "Experience can be taught, but character cannot. I've seen how you handle pressure, how you treat customers with respect even when they don't deserve it, and how you support your coworkers. Those are the qualities I need in a manager." He opened the folder and showed Maya architectural drawings of the new restaurant. It looked stunning, with an open kitchen concept, elegant dining areas, and a sophisticated bar. The projected opening date was 6 weeks away. The position would start at $45,000 per year, plus performance bonuses and health insurance, James said. "You would also receive extensive training in restaurant management, wine service, and hospitality leadership. If the restaurant succeeds, as I expect it will, there would be opportunities for advancement and possibly ownership stakes in future ventures." Maya felt dizzy. The salary alone was more than double what she made at Golden Dragon, and the benefits seemed almost too good to be true. But doubt crept into her mind. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "There must be hundreds of more qualified candidates." James leaned forward, his expression serious. "Maya, I've been in this business for 15 years. I've hired managers with impressive resumes and years of experience who turned out to be lazy, dishonest, or incompetent. I've learned to trust my instincts about people's character more than their credentials." He paused, taking a sip of his coffee. "Yesterday, when the health inspector was at Golden Dragon, I watched you work twice as hard to help Mr. Liu prepare for the inspection, even though you were clearly stressed about something else. Most employees would have done the minimum required, but you went above and beyond for a boss who can barely afford to pay you. Maya thought about her financial struggles and wondered if her desperation was somehow visible to others. I also noticed you were late yesterday morning, James continued. But instead of making excuses, you immediately focused on doing your job well. Later, I saw you researching plumbers during your break, trying to help solve the restaurant's problems even though it wasn't your responsibility. Maya realized that James had been paying much more attention than she had ever imagined. It was both flattering and slightly unsettling to know that someone had been observing her so carefully. "There's one more thing," James said, reaching into his briefcase again. He pulled out a cashier's check and placed it on the table between them. Maya's eyes widened when she saw the amount, $5,000. "This is a signing bonus if you decide to accept the position," James explained.
I know that changing jobs can be financially difficult, especially when you're leaving a steady income, even a small one. This money would help cover your expenses during the transition period and allow you to give proper notice to Mr. Liu.
Maya stared at the check, her mind racing. $5,000 would solve all her immediate problems and give her a financial cushion she had never had before. But the offer seemed too generous, too perfect. She had learned to be suspicious of situations that appeared too good to be true. "I need time to think about this," Maya said finally. "This is a huge decision and I don't want to make it impulsively." James nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the kind of thoughtful response I would expect from someone I want to hire. Take all the time you need. But I do need an answer within a week, as I have other aspects of the restaurant opening that depend on having my management team in place." He stood up and shook Maya's hand. "My offer is genuine, Maya. I believe you have the potential to be an exceptional restaurant manager, and I'm willing to invest in your success. But ultimately, you have to believe in yourself." After James left, Maya sat in the cafe for another hour, staring at his business card and trying to process everything that had just happened. 24 hours ago, she had been counting her last few dollars and wondering how she would survive the next week. Now she was being offered a career opportunity that could change her entire life. But Maya also felt torn about leaving Mr. Liu and Golden Dragon. The old man had given her a job when she desperately needed one, and now he was facing his own financial crisis. How could she abandon him just when he needed her most? Maya walked slowly back to her apartment, the cashier's check folded carefully in her purse. She had never held so much money in her hands, and the weight of the decision felt almost overwhelming. By the time she reached her building, she had decided to spend the rest of the day researching everything she could about James Morrison, Pacific Harvest, and the restaurant industry in general. One way or another, she needed to make the most important decision of her life. Maya arrived at Golden Dragon that afternoon with a heavy heart and a head full of conflicting thoughts. She had spent hours researching Pacific Harvest, reading reviews of James Morrison's other restaurants and trying to imagine herself as a manager. Everything she found reinforced that this was a legitimate, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Mr. Liu was in the kitchen when she arrived, looking more stressed than she had ever seen him. The leak under the sink had gotten worse overnight, and now there was standing water that made the whole kitchen smell musty. He was trying to fix it himself with a wrench and some old tools, but clearly wasn't having much success. "The plumber wants $300 up front," Mr. Liu told Maya without looking up from his work. "I called 6 different companies and they all want the same thing. Cash before they'll even look at the problem." Maya watched him struggle with the pipes, his hands shaking slightly from frustration and worry. She thought about the $5,000 check in her purse and felt a pang of guilt. That money could easily solve Mr. Liu's immediate problem. But if she gave it to him, she would be tied to Golden Dragon indefinitely. The lunch shift was particularly slow, with only a handful of customers throughout the entire afternoon. Maya served each table attentively, but her mind kept drifting to James Morrison's offer. She imagined herself in a professional suit, managing a staff of servers in an upscale restaurant, learning about wine pairings and sophisticated food presentation. During her break, Maya called her sister Jenny in Oregon. She hadn't spoken to her family in months, partly because of pride and partly because she didn't want them to worry about her financial struggles. "Maya," Jenny's voice was filled with surprise and joy. I was just thinking about you. How's life in the big city? Maya found herself choking up at the sound of her sister's familiar voice. It's been challenging, she admitted, but something amazing might be happening. She told Jenny about James Morrison's offer, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice until she had made a final decision. Jenny listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions about the company, the salary, and Maya's concerns about leaving her current job. This sounds like exactly the kind of opportunity you moved to Seattle to find, Jenny said, but I can hear the hesitation in your voice. What's really bothering you about it? Maya explained her loyalty to Mr. Liu and her worry about abandoning him during a crisis. She also admitted her fear that she might not be qualified for such a responsible position. Maya, you've been supporting yourself in an expensive city for 3 years, Jenny reminded her. You've learned a new language, adapted to a completely different culture, and built a reputation as a reliable employee. That takes more courage and skill than most management positions require. After they hung up, Maya felt more confident about her abilities, but still conflicted about the timing. She returned to work determined to find a solution that wouldn't leave Mr. Liu in an impossible situation. Around 4 p.m., Maya was surprised to see James Morrison enter the restaurant again. He sat at the same table as the day before and ordered tea and spring rolls. Maya served him professionally, but they didn't discuss his job offer in front of other customers. However, she noticed that James was observing the restaurant more carefully this time, taking notes about the kitchen problems, the slow business, and Mr. Liu's obvious stress. When Maya brought his check, James asked quietly if he could speak with her and Mr. Liu together after closing. Maya felt nervous but agreed. She spent the rest of her shift wondering what James wanted to discuss with her boss. Maybe he was going to withdraw his offer, because he had seen how desperate her current situation was. Or maybe he wanted to poach other employees from Golden Dragon. After the last customer left and Maya had finished cleaning, she approached Mr. Liu hesitantly. The customer from table 12 would like to speak with both of us if you have a few minutes. Mr. Liu looked confused but agreed. James introduced himself formally and explained that he was a local restaurateur who had been impressed by Golden Dragon's food and service. He didn't immediately mention his job offer to Maya, instead focusing on the restaurant's challenges. I understand you're facing some financial difficulties, James said diplomatically. The hospitality industry has been tough for everyone, especially small family restaurants. Mr. Liu nodded sadly. Business is very slow and now we have expensive repairs. I don't know if I can keep the doors open much longer. James was quiet for a moment, seeming to consider something carefully. Then he made a proposal that caught both Maya and Mr. Liu completely off guard. What if I could help you solve both problems? James asked. I'm always looking for good suppliers for my restaurants, and your kitchen produces some of the best Chinese food I've tasted in Seattle. Would you be interested in a catering contract? Mr. Liu's eyes widened with surprise and hope. James explained that his company regularly hosted business events, employee parties, and private dinners that required high-quality catering. If Golden Dragon could handle bulk orders for these events, it would provide a steady source of income that could supplement the restaurant's dine-in business. The contract would guarantee at least $2,000 per month in orders, James continued, possibly much more during busy seasons, and I would pay a $500 advance to help you get the kitchen repairs done and upgrade some equipment. Maya watched Mr. Liu's face transform as he processed this unexpected lifeline. The old man had been carrying the weight of potential failure for months, and suddenly someone was offering him a path to stability. But there's one condition, James added, looking at Maya. I would need Maya to serve as my primary contact and quality control manager for all catering orders. She would coordinate between your kitchen and my events team, ensure consistent quality, and handle all the logistics. Maya realized that James was creating a solution that would allow her to accept his job offer while still helping Mr. Liu save his restaurant. The catering coordination role would give her valuable management experience and help her transition into her new career gradually. Maya would work for you? Mr. Liu asked, clearly confused by the arrangement. She would work for both of us, James explained. Part-time here, managing our catering relationship, and part-time at my new restaurant, learning advanced hospitality management. It would be perfect training for her career development. Maya felt overwhelmed by the elegance of James's solution. He had found a way to help Mr. Liu, give her the career opportunity she needed, and solve his own staffing needs all at once. But she also wondered if it was too complicated to work in practice. "I would need to think about this," Mr. Liu said slowly. "It's very generous, but also very different from how I usually do business." James nodded understandingly. "Take your time. But Maya, I still need an answer about the management position within the next few days. The catering arrangement would be separate from that decision." After James left, Maya and Mr. Liu sat in the empty restaurant discussing this unexpected turn of events. Mr. Liu was clearly excited about the possibility of steady catering income, but he was also worried about changing his business model after so many years. "What do you think, Maya?" he asked. "This man seems honest, but it's a big risk." Maya thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 days. Her life had gone from desperate to hopeful in ways she never could have imagined. But she also realized that both opportunities, the management job and the catering contract, required her to believe in herself in ways that felt scary and unfamiliar. "I think we should both take the risk," Maya said finally. "Sometimes you have to trust that good things can happen, even when you're not expecting them." The next morning, Maya woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She had made her decision during a sleepless night of weighing options, and now she felt ready to take control of her future. She dressed carefully in her best outfit, a simple black dress she had bought for job interviews 3 years ago, and headed to Golden Dragon early. Mr. Liu was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of tea and a notepad covered in numbers. He looked up when Maya entered, his expression hopeful but anxious. "I've been thinking all night about Mr. Morrison's offer," he said. "The catering contract could save the restaurant, but I'm scared about depending on one big customer. What if he changes his mind or his business fails?" Maya sat down across from him, understanding his concerns completely. Small business owners like Mr. Liu had learned to be cautious about opportunities that seemed too good to be true. "Mr. Liu, I've been researching his company extensively," Maya said. "Morrison Hospitality Group has been successful for over 15 years, and they have contracts with several local suppliers. The risk might be worth taking, especially considering our current situation." They spent the next hour going through Mr. Liu's finances together, something they had never done before. Maya was shocked to learn how dire the situation truly was. Golden Dragon was behind on rent, owed money to 3 different suppliers, and had less than $200 in the business checking account. Without immediate help, the restaurant would have to close within 2 weeks. "I had no idea things were this bad," Maya said softly. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mr. Liu looked embarrassed. "I kept hoping business would improve, and I didn't want to worry you. You work so hard, and I know you depend on this job." Maya felt a wave of affection for her kind boss, who had been protecting her from worry even while his own world was falling apart. It strengthened her resolve to make James Morrison's plan work for both of them. At 10 a.m., Maya called James and told him she was ready to accept both positions, the restaurant management job and the catering coordination role. She could hear the satisfaction in his voice as he congratulated her on her decision. "I had a feeling you would find a way to make this work," James said. "Can you and Mr. Liu meet me at Pacific Harvest this afternoon? I'd like to show you both the space and discuss the details of our partnership." Maya spent the rest of the morning helping Mr. Liu prepare for their meeting. She helped him organize his financial documents, practiced explaining his menu offerings in English, and even helped him choose a more professional shirt from the spare clothes he kept at the restaurant. Pacific Harvest was located in a beautiful brick building in Belltown, with large windows facing Elliott Bay and the Olympic Mountains. Maya had walked past the space many times during its renovation, but she had never imagined she might work there someday. James met them at the entrance and gave them a complete tour of the restaurant. The dining room was elegant but warm, with locally made wooden tables, Edison bulb lighting, and an open kitchen where customers could watch the chefs work. Maya tried to imagine herself managing this sophisticated operation, and the thought both thrilled and terrified her. The kitchen was state-of-the-art, with commercial-grade equipment that made Golden Dragon's setup look primitive by comparison. James showed Mr. Liu the prep, areas where catered food could be packaged, and the loading dock where orders could be picked up efficiently. "Your spring rolls and dumplings would be perfect for our corporate events," James explained to Mr. Liu. "And your beef and broccoli could be a great option for larger dinner functions." We typically need food for anywhere from 20 to 200 people per event. Mr. Liu's eyes lit up as he calculated the potential revenue from such large orders. Maya could see him becoming more excited about the partnership as James explained the specific requirements and quality standards. In James's office, they reviewed the formal contracts for both Maya's employment and the catering agreement. Maya was impressed by how detailed and fair the terms appeared to be. Her salary would start immediately, even though Pacific Harvest wouldn't open for another month, giving her time to learn management skills while still helping Mr. Liu transition to the catering business. The catering contract included specific minimum orders, payment schedules, and quality requirements. Most importantly for Mr. Liu, James agreed to pay the $1,500 advance immediately, allowing Golden Dragon to fix the plumbing problem and catch up on overdue bills. "There's one more thing," James said, pulling out another folder. "Maya, as part of your management training, you'll be working with our head chef to develop a fusion menu that incorporates some Asian influences. I'd like Mr. Liu to serve as a consultant on that project, which would provide additional income for Golden Dragon." Maya looked at Mr. Liu, who was practically beaming with excitement. This partnership was evolving into something much more comprehensive than either of them had originally imagined. They spent another hour going through operational details, scheduling Maya's training program, and planning the timeline for the first catering orders. James explained that Maya would spend mornings at Pacific Harvest learning management systems, inventory control, and staff training techniques. Her afternoons would be at Golden Dragon, coordinating catering orders and helping Mr. Liu adapt his kitchen processes for larger-scale production. When they finally left Pacific Harvest, Maya felt like she was walking in a dream. 3 days ago, she had been spending her last $10 on dumplings, wondering how she would survive the next week. Now she was about to begin a career that could change her entire life trajectory. Back at Golden Dragon, Maya and Mr. Liu called the plumber immediately and scheduled the repair for the next morning. They also called Mrs. Chang from the health department to arrange the follow-up inspection for the end of the week. That evening, Maya worked her regular shift with a completely different mindset. Instead of just serving customers, she observed everything from a management perspective. She noticed inefficiencies in the kitchen workflow, areas where customer service could be improved, and opportunities to increase sales through better menu presentation. When a family of 4 came in for dinner, Maya took extra time to explain the dishes and make recommendations. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and they ended up ordering appetizers, desserts, and tea in addition to their main courses. The larger order resulted in better tips for Maya and more revenue for the restaurant. During a quiet moment, Maya called Jenny to share her exciting news. Her sister was thrilled and proud, but also full of practical questions about Maya's new responsibilities. "Are you sure you're ready to manage other people?" Jenny asked. "It's a big jump from serving tables to running a restaurant." Maya had been wondering the same thing, but her conversation with James had given her confidence. "He's going to train me gradually, and I'll have experienced staff to help me learn. Besides, I've been watching Mr. Liu manage this place for 3 years. I've learned more about restaurant operations than I realized." As the evening wound down, Maya helped Mr. Liu count the day's earnings. For the first time in weeks, they had had a profitable day, earning enough to cover basic expenses and even set aside a small amount for savings. "Maya, I cannot thank you enough," Mr. Liu said as they prepared to close. "You could have taken that job and left me to struggle alone, but instead, you found a way to help both of us succeed." Maya felt emotional as she realized how much their relationship had changed in just a few days. Mr. Liu had always been a kind boss, but now he felt more like a business partner and friend. "We're going to make this work," Maya said confidently. "Golden Dragon is going to be more successful than ever, and I'm going to learn everything I can about running a restaurant business." As Maya walked home that night, she thought about the elderly woman who had sold her the dumplings just 3 days before. The woman had said the dumplings would give her strength, and in a strange way, that had turned out to be prophetic. That small act of treating herself to a good meal during a desperate time had somehow led to this incredible opportunity. Maya realized that sometimes the most important decisions happen when you choose to believe in yourself, even when circumstances seem impossible. She had spent her last $10 on something that brought her comfort and nourishment, and that simple act of self-care had given her the energy to face the challenges that followed. Now, as she prepared to embark on a new career that would require all of her courage and determination, Maya felt grateful for every difficult experience that had brought her to this moment. She was ready to prove that James Morrison's faith in her abilities was well placed, and she was excited to discover what she could accomplish when given the opportunity to succeed. 6 months later, Maya stood in the main dining room of Pacific Harvest, watching the evening service unfold with quiet satisfaction. The restaurant had been open for 4 months and was already earning rave reviews from food critics and customers alike. More importantly, Maya had grown into her role as front-of-house manager with a confidence that surprised even herself. She wore a tailored black suit that James had helped her choose, and her hair was styled in a professional updo that made her look older and more authoritative. As she moved through the dining room, checking on tables and coordinating with servers, Maya carried herself with the poise of someone who belonged in this sophisticated environment. The evening service was particularly special because Mr. Liu was in the kitchen as a guest chef, preparing a selection of fusion dishes that combined his traditional Chinese techniques with Pacific Harvest's farm-to-table philosophy. The collaboration had been so successful that James was considering making it a monthly event. Maya paused at table 15, where a young couple was celebrating their anniversary. She had personally selected their wine pairing and arranged for a complimentary dessert with a small sparkler candle. These kinds of personal touches had become her signature as a manager, and they were a big part of why Pacific Harvest had developed such a loyal customer base. "Everything looks perfect," the woman said as Maya checked on their meal. "The service here is always exceptional." Maya thanked them graciously and moved on to oversee the kitchen pass, where servers were picking up expertly plated dishes. She had learned to read the rhythm of the kitchen, knowing exactly when to speed up service or slow it down based on the chef's workflow. James appeared beside her, looking pleased with the evening's success. "Table 12 wants to compliment the chef on the duck dish," he said. And the reviewer from Seattle Magazine just finished her meal. She seemed very impressed. Maya nodded, making mental notes to follow up with both situations. Restaurant reviews could make or break a business, and she had learned to pay special attention to food critics and influential customers. During a brief lull in service, Maya stepped outside to get some fresh air and check her phone. She had received a text message from Jenny, who was visiting Seattle for the first time since Maya's career transformation. Her sister had been amazed by the changes in Maya's life and was staying in Maya's new one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill. The apartment was modest but comfortable, with a real kitchen, a separate bedroom, and windows that actually opened. Maya had furnished it slowly and carefully, choosing pieces that would last and reflect her growing sense of stability and success. Her phone also showed a message from Mr. Liu, who was taking a break from the guest chef duties. Golden Dragon had thrived under the catering contract, and Mr. Liu had been able to hire 2 additional kitchen staff members to handle the increased volume. The restaurant was now profitable and busy, serving both walk-in customers and large catering orders for Morrison Hospitality Group. Maya had continued working part-time at Golden Dragon, coordinating catering orders and helping Mr. Liu expand his business skills. The arrangement had worked perfectly, giving her diverse experience while maintaining her connection to the place that had given her a start. As she returned to the dining room, Maya reflected on how much her life had changed since that desperate night when she had spent her last $10 on dumplings. The financial stress that had once kept her awake at night was now a distant memory. She had a growing savings account, good health insurance, and for the first time in her adult life, she felt secure about her future. But the changes went beyond just financial stability. Maya had discovered leadership abilities she never knew she possessed. She had learned to train new servers, handle difficult customers with diplomacy, and coordinate complex events with multiple moving parts. James had been an excellent mentor, teaching her not just about restaurant management, but about business strategy and professional development. The evening service was winding down when Maya noticed a familiar face at table 8. It was Mrs. Chang, the health inspector who had nearly shut down Golden Dragon 6 months earlier. She was dining with her family, celebrating her daughter's graduation from college. Maya approached their table with a professional smile. "Mrs. Chang, what a pleasure to see you this evening. How is everything?" Mrs. Chang looked surprised to see Maya in a management role at such an upscale restaurant. "Maya, I hardly recognized you. You look so professional and confident." They chatted briefly about Maya's career transition in Golden Dragon's continued success. Mrs. Chang mentioned that she had recently inspected the restaurant again and been impressed by the improvements in organization and cleanliness. "You've done well for yourself," Mrs. Chang said warmly. "I remember how worried you looked during that inspection, but you never stopped working hard or trying to help your boss solve his problems. That says a lot about your character." After Mrs. Chang's family finished their meal, Maya returned to her final duties of the evening. She reviewed the night's sales figures with James, planned tomorrow's prep schedule with the kitchen manager, and ensured that all closing procedures were completed properly. Pacific Harvest had served 127 customers that evening. With an average check of $78 per person, the restaurant was consistently profitable and had a waiting list for weekend reservations that stretched 2 weeks out. Maya took pride in knowing that her management contributed significantly to that success. As the last server finished cleaning their section, Maya gathered her team for a brief end-of-shift meeting. She thanked them for their hard work, addressed a few minor service issues, and reminded them about tomorrow's special events. Leading these meetings had been intimidating at first, but Maya had learned to be direct and supportive in her communication style. James stayed after closing to review the evening with Maya, as he did several times each week. They discussed staffing needs, upcoming events, and plans for expanding Pacific Harvest's catering services. James had recently offered Maya a partnership opportunity in his next restaurant venture, which would give her an ownership stake and even more responsibility. "You've exceeded every expectation I had when I offered you this position," James told her as they prepared to leave. "Your instincts about people and service are remarkable, and you've developed into one of the best managers I've ever worked with." Maya felt proud but also humble about her achievements. She knew that luck had played a role in her success, but she also recognized that her willingness to work hard and learn continuously had been essential. As she walked to her car, a reliable used Honda she had been able to purchase with her improved income, Maya thought about the elderly woman who had sold her those fateful dumplings. She had never seen the woman again, despite returning to that grocery store many times. Sometimes Maya wondered if the encounter had been real, or if desperation had made her imagine the woman's kindness and wisdom. But the dumplings had been real, and so had the comfort they provided during her darkest moment. That small act of taking care of herself, even when she could barely afford it, had somehow given her the strength to face the opportunities that followed. Maya drove through the quiet Seattle streets toward her apartment, where Jenny was waiting with a bottle of wine to celebrate her sister's success. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but tonight Maya felt grateful for how far she had come and excited about where her journey might lead next. She had learned that transformation often begins with the smallest acts of faith in yourself, even when the future seems impossible to imagine. Sometimes all it takes is the courage to spend your last $10 on something that nourishes your body and soul, trusting that somehow things will work out better than you dare to hope.